lots of talk on interest rates and whether they're good or bad. And to be honest with you, it really depends on perspective. Like us crypto bros, people that own real estate, large corporations, they love low interest rates because low interest rates allows for what is called cheap money or quantitative easing. All that means is that you print more of it. Just to go back to the basics, the reason why Bitcoin is so valuable is because there's only ever going to be 21 million of them made ever. The reason why precious metals are so valuable is because there's only a certain amount in existence, right? But when you can print an infinity amount of things, it makes it so that basically there's no value to it, right? Even if you understand, like if like a 5-year-old, you give 5-year-olds, let's say 10 5-year-olds, one chocolate bar, and then you give them 10 chocolate bars and tell them which one is more important. If you give it to them in different days, they're going to tell you, oh, the one chocolate bar they understand that it has more value because there's less of it. So we have to go back to Nixon briefly. Nixon took us out the gold standard. What that means was the US dollar before, you could actually take it to banks and exchange it for actual gold. He basically said, fuck that. We're gonna have the gold standard because we want to print as much money as possible because we want to be able to spend more money. Same thing with the British pound. British pound sterling. The British pound, the currency of the United Kingdom. The reason why it's called British pound sterling or British pound is because there was a time when you could actually take one of them and exchange it for a pound of gold. So now that we can print an infinite amount of money, money doesn't really have the value that it used to have, and it doesn't have the scarcity attribute that it used to have. So when the US government prints more money, let's take Bitcoin for example. This could be talked about for almost every cryptocurrency, with the exception being certain proof of stake cryptos, which you can technically create more of them, or Dogecoin, which you can actually create. It's programmed to code. You can create an infinite amount of technically. Bitcoin only 21 billion. I think that Cardano is. I'm not a big fan, but 81 billion. I think that's gonna be created or something crazy, or 81 million. And Litecoin's like 40 million. Bitcoin is the easiest example. Let's just take that. When you can print an infinite amount of money, the more money you print, the more the value of each Bitcoin becomes. Because when people, in order to combat inflation, which is increasing money supply and money becoming less valuable, they put it into Bitcoin. Also, this applies to housing markets as well. When there's more money in circulation, houses go up in value. Businesses, stocks go up in value. I think in the 1970s, you guys dropped something. In the 1970s, basically, that's a lot. It is what it is. 1970s, 1980s, I think it was. The highest valued stock was like 80 or 50 billion dollars, and now the highest, you have the Magnificent Four or whatever, or Magnificent Seven. They're like all worth like $2-3 trillion, and Nvidia's hitting all new time highs. It's like over something trillion. Bitcoin itself is like 2 trillion and rising. So if you own companies and you have company stocks like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Larry Ellison, which congrats to Larry, I think that's his name, the Oracle guy. He's now the richest man in the world because his stock went up in value. So basically when you have stocks and you have gold, you have precious metals, you have crypto, assets. These things are called physical or non-physical assets. They go up in value when there's more money in circulation because smart people that have lots of money, in order to debase it to preserve the value of their currency, they invest in those things. This is also really cool for sports franchises too. A lot of people don't know this, but a reason why a lot of people own sports franchises is because it's prestigious and it's a store of value. Sports franchises go up in value. The Raiders, when they moved from Oakland to Las Vegas, their valuation went from like 2 trillion to like 5 trillion. And like even like the most valuable NBA team right now is actually Golden State Warriors, because they moved from Oakland, where they had a low valuation, to San Francisco, which has the highest property values in the country. I worked for Yelp at one point, and a lot of employees from Yelp, especially middle management, moved to New York City because the real estate is much cheaper there. So if you own assets, then you are good. The lower the interest rates, the more they inflate, the better, because prices can only go up so high, right? However, there's a downside to this. There's always a good and positive. If you don't own any assets, which is the majority of people, especially in the kind of situation we're at now in the United States, where many people are struggling, just have 2 or 3 jobs to survive, and you only have a salary, salaries don't keep up with inflation, right? A job that started you off of $40,000, let's say a police, a state trooper, they started you off at $30,000 10 years ago, a year. I know this because I talk to people. 4 years ago, they started you off $40,000. Now it's like $45,000. It doesn't keep with inflation. So in the 80s, our parents and grandparents could buy a house that was worth $100,000, and their salary was like $50,000, and that made sense a year, right? That's why you hear the stories of our fathers and grandfathers. Our fathers, they're a little older. They had housewives, had like 7, 8 children. They could put them all through college. They could afford the housewife and the children, and college was cheaper too. It's a different story for another day. But we have to understand that if you are living off a salary, then and you don't have any assets, because if you have one house that you live in, that is not an asset, that is a liability, because that can go down. You have to fix things in the house. Music in the background. I'm on the Jersey Shore again. You have to fix things in the house. The boiler can go out. Different things can happen. You have to maintain it and fix it. If you're living in the house with your family, that is a liability. If you have several houses and other people are paying you rent and you have insurance out part of that rent, that is an asset. So most people, if they're lucky nowadays, they have one house. If they're renting, even worse, because again, you only have liabilities, cars and everything. If you don't have any assets, you only have liabilities in your life, then your salary is losing value. And obviously companies aren't giving you, some companies, certain state level positions. My mom worked for the state of Rhode Island for many years. They'll give you like a life, I forgot, it's like when you have kids in this line, like every year they give you like a little bit, like 0.001 or 1%, because you have a lifestyle inflation with children and you get older and all that. But if so, you have to understand, to make this very brief, I don't want to go too long in these videos. Interest rates going lower is generally speaking good for people that are wealthy and have assets. Thanks, appreciate it. It's bad for people that cannot afford assets and only have liabilities, which is the majority of the population in this day and age, because the economy, the way it is in the 1980s, 80% of the people ran 80% of the economy, of the money in the economy. Nowadays, 20% of the people, the top 20%, or was it in the 80s, 20 people? The top 20% now manage 80% of the money in circulation. So the way life is now, this is a really bad time, again, for people like us, crypto bros, crypto sisses, especially Gen Z and millennials that are into crypto, Gen Alpha. Crypto is your escape route. And with that being said, Saturday Showdown. Let's go.